Hey, how's it going?
Hey, and we're back for episode 3 of What the Phuc, a show about startups, about spirituality, about entrepreneurship, about hardship of the human condition and trying to overcome it and make something of your life. And last episode, we went through some of my childhood, where I spoke about how I was lucky enough to get into a really good private school called Roxbury Latin. And I got into Harvard, and I started a company, and we totally blew $22 million. So the topic was $22 million I lived to tell. Yeah. So most people would quit after the first startup and a failure like that, right?
If you want to go check it out.
Yeah, but but we didn't get to go to Roberto's background. But Roberto, you got some badass tattoos on your arm there. You got some muscles there. So were you?
Thank you.
Were you pretty popular at high school? Maybe we can get to your childhood and talk about your experiences and how you got here. But again, this is a reality show, What the Phuc, about science, about some of the companies we're starting. But we're leading up to it with some backstory and character development, as most good series would do. But also get to know you guys and our personalities, and also show that we're authentic people, trying to show you our craft and help, and be honest about it. So go ahead, Roberto.
Yeah, for sure. No, actually, I did not have tattoos in high school. My parents would have killed me. They were they're very like old school, if you want to say that. Like there were no tattoos, no piercings, and like they think only criminals have tattoos. I heard that one a lot. It was pretty interesting. So last time my mom saw my tattoos, it was really like if you could look at tattoos go away, like for them to go away, she would have done that. Like for a while I was sleeping with an eye open in case she showed up with like a cheese grater or something to remove them. It's really something that she hates. Like, oh, your arm can never be again what it used to be. And yeah, no. And
but when did you get those tattoos then?
Man, this tattoo is like a couple years old.
Okay.
The whole thing like inside, and I got this. I've always wanted a sleeve. I used to have some smaller ones. This one is one I got like when I was in university. Okay. I was maybe like in my 20s. And a note to self: wait until your brain is fully developed before you start getting permanent stuff on your skin. Like your brain is only at 25. Before that, any decisions that you're making should not be this permanent. I had some other that I covered up with like a bigger chest piece. But I got a bunch of small ones, and honestly, like when it comes to like tattoos, you don't want to be either cheap on your artist or like cheap on how you're gonna get. You make a plan, do exactly what you want, and start saving up. I used to go to there's a parlor in Montreal with like every time I had like $50, I go get a tattoo.
And what was a tattoo supposed to represent?
This one?
I never got the why would you brand yourself essentially?
Well, because I've always wanted to. I've loved the art of the tattoos, and at some point I was like, you know what, it's time. And it was 2 years ago, so I was like in my 30s, and then I was like, you know what, this is happening. And then we went and looked for an artist, and there was one there's this place called Newman Tattoo in Quito, in Ecuador. And we set it up, got to meet the tattoo artist, which is Diego Espinosa, and we just did it. That was it. Like we went through some design phases, because what I wanted was a koi fish. Like I don't know if you're like familiar with I always liked the Japanese culture like a lot. It's from animes, the food. I went to Japan with my wife. Before she was my wife, like first trip together, when she was my girlfriend. And Japan is amazing. Like I really love that place. There's definitely like some cultural aspects that are very different from what let's say I was used to. And it's very homogeneous. Like everybody in Japan is Japanese. We probably I was the only Latino I saw in like a month. And we crossed a couple of black dudes, and that was it. Everybody else was either Japanese. So I figured like at some point I wanted something from Japan. I always loved everything from there. So then this is supposed to be like the I don't know if you're familiar with like the story of the koi fish and all the Hanyamas and the demons. Well, basically there was a bunch of koi that were just like going up a river, and then they get like this huge waterfall, and they start trying. Then they go up and they're struggling. And on the side of the waterfall, you have all these demons that are just like hanging out and laughing at the kois, just trying to go up this waterfall. That seemed like such an impossible task. And to make it more interesting, they make the waterfall 100 times higher. And at some point, one of the koi fish actually makes it, and so it gets rewarded and turning into a dragon and everything. So that's like kind of the reward. You get turned into a dragon for all the yeah. I know, it's actually pretty cool.
That's cool, because I'm actually a year of the dragon. And
nice.
you know about the different zodiac signs and the different animals. So the dragon is actually a really weird personality. The personality is, and I actually remember this because I kind of model my life based on actually a video game. You remember Metroid? You ever played the game Metroid?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of like the same analogy that I think, a dragon mindset, right? So a dragon is either the king flying in the sky, ruling the world, is the emperor of the heavens and controls the land. He's the most powerful creature on earth. And the whole idea is either you live as a leader, the best, whatever, or you're just going to be down the ocean somewhere, right? So I kind of live my life that way. But actually, this was reinforced by video games of all places. And you remember a game called Metroid. So Metroid was a game back in the 80s. And there's still versions of Metroid today. But a couple of cool things about Metroid. First of all, when you played it at the end, it was a woman. You actually end up realizing when you take the helmet off of the character. So you play a character essentially in this video game where you have a helmet on and a suit, a spacesuit essentially. And you can't tell the gender of the person. And then you're playing as a little boy and you're shooting and you're doing all this stuff. And at the end, you take off the helmet. It turns out it's a woman. And it's like the most awesome feeling. Oh my God. Just like an Easter egg. You're like, this is amazing. So this kind of broke ground. But I remember playing that game. And there are two ways you can play that game. Okay. The first way you can play that game is you can do what's called grinding. You know what grinding is in video games?
Oh, yeah, you just keep going until you get it done.
Yeah, so grinding is like you go and literally you collect all these bonus items and you get more and more powerful and you build up these bonus points and you get more and more weapons and you get all these upgrades, and then when you fight the big boss, you win pretty easily most of the time if you do the right grinding. But it'll take you 20 hours and then you beat the big boss. Now the other way you can do it is just the minimum effort, try to beat the big boss in 20 minutes. Collect like the biggest weapons you can, 1 or 2 big weapons, and just wing it and try to beat the game fast. Yeah. And remember Metroid, you had to grind, and most of the time you just have to grind to beat it, but like, you know what? I had way more fun when I just went for it.
It is more entertaining.
Yeah, so life is the same thing. Right? So like so you're the dragon, go back to so that koi, the one that went for it, right? The only difference between the other koi and that koi was that koi went for it. And like I think that's the thing. A lot of smart people when they graduate. So going back to the whole college experience. While I was starting a company, while I was trying to like skip class. So actually senior year, I did not go to any classes. In fact, I remember one experience where I essentially escaped failing. I remember the class very clearly. It was called Industrial Economics. It was at 8 a.m. And during senior year, I was working so hard on the company, I didn't really care about academics, that I basically couldn't get up at 8, so I skipped the entire semester. And then, because I saw the grade was, you just have to write a 20-page paper, so I just skipped class and just write the paper. So I wrote 20 pages of just randomness. And this is like the most embarrassing moment in my life. But I was brought in to the professor. He's like, come into my office. And he's like, I'm going to give you a C plus. And I should give you a D or an F. But the fact you wrote 20 pages, I'll give you a C plus because this is Harvard, right? Or C minus. I forget but I think it might have been a C minus. But anyway, I didn't care, right? And so like while I was doing that and taking risks and not really caring about academics and all this stuff, people, I flew like the dragon. I tried to skip levels and remember
How
when I
is
said
C plus a dragon?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like, C plus is not a dragon.
What's that?
Come on. C plus is not a dragon.
No. I'm saying skipping levels means I didn't care about grades. I didn't care about like going to grad school. I didn't care about all this stuff. I didn't care about having the best grades so I can get to the best consulting company or the best like investment bank, because they do look at grades, by the way. Like the grades do matter,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
To some degree, but I didn't care about it because I'm like, you know what? That's not my path. My path is to be like the Wild West, the person who reigns in the new future and brings it to the present. And I think that's what I think my gift
if
is.
you're the type of person that's gonna go get a job and actually like work for somebody, you definitely need those grades, because they will look at that, because it shows procedure more than anything. Like if they say that you're able to do something for an X amount of hours consistently. But
Yeah.
if you're the other type of person that like what we're doing is more like I just want to get this done, so I can learn the actual stuff I'm actually going to use, and then go on from there on, see how it goes. But if I'm going to like sit in a cubicle, you need those grades.
Well, the thing here is, okay,
Mm-hmm.
when you sit in the cubicle, you're in a movie like The Office. You ever see the movie The Office? So they have
Series,
something. Yeah, it's basically makes fun of the environment where you work in an office setting. And in the office setting, it's pretty terrible. Like most people don't really care about their jobs, because the more work they do, the more they get. They don't get the recognition they expect. They get demoralized. It's just a job. And then most of their movie that they care about is their home life, or their family life, or their romantic life, or their hobbies, or things outside of work. But if you think about work, it's like 8 hours a day. So I'll tell you some crazy stories.
Big chunk of your day.
But I remember, I'll tell you in the next episode, but in my consulting days, I remember I'll tell you the story right now, it's apt. So there was a women's room, and around 3 p.m. there was snoring, emulating the women's room. And every day at 3 p.m., I would hear the snoring. It was very loud, because you just walked by it. And then I would say, and I didn't have to volunteer, but the women would talk about it. It's like, hey, there's a woman there that just takes a nap at 3 p.m. every day in the bathroom. And then she goes home. So she actually literally sits on the toilet and sleeps. And
You're getting paid by the hour.
yes, and then you walk through the parking lot, and there'll be people sleeping in the cars. So anyway,
I like Amazon.
well, look, Amazon makes you work harder, and maybe there's some claims that they make you pee in a cup and all that stuff when you're driving and delivering packages. But I mean, ultimately, it's this, right? If you go into work and you love your job, you don't even look at the clock. You're learning, you're having fun, and I think that's where humans are headed. And let's go back to your childhood. Like, I think the difference between, I'd love to ask you a question. In fact, right?
Yep.
So, I would love to talk about the difference culturally, philosophically between Asian culture, Western culture, and I'd love to hear about Latino culture. And so let me talk to you about the Asian culture, kind of how I kind of see life, and I think how it'd be good to be informed of what's called the concentric circles. Right? So Confucianism, you may have heard of Confucian. You know what Confucius is, right? It's kind of a way of living. But actually, my religion actually, when I was growing up, was ancestral worship, where you just respect your elders, and that's mostly what Asian culture is about. Like there's Buddhism, there's all that stuff, but mostly you just respect your elders and familial ties and all that stuff. And actually, that's what I'm talking about in terms of the concentric circles. So the definition of a concentric circle is a circle that has a circle in it, that has a bigger circle outside that has a bigger circle outside that. And that's the way you kind of think about how you want to like live your life. So, for example, the inner circle is you. So if you have a healthy lifestyle, if you're mentally fit, you can take care of yourself. And then you can take care of your wife, which is the next circle, your family, right? Your close ones, your kids, your loved ones. And that's your family, okay? And then outside that circle is your neighbors, the people who live in your village. And in fact, Vietnamese people, I'm not sure if you know this is the only language where there is no you or I. There's actually multiple ways to say you or I. Okay. In fact, when I say you, I have to know how old you are relative to me, if you're male or female, so I can give you the proper respect. So let's say you're older than me, right? How old are you, Roberto?
36.
So I'm going to call you Am. Am is my little brother. Okay. And you're going to call me An. Okay,
Okay.
because an means I'm your
Yeah.
big brother. Okay,
That's what I liked about English, though, because everybody's the same.
right.
That's
Well,
it. It's a
anyway,
you.
but there's this is priorities, but there's family is number 3 in terms of the
Mhm.
circle, right? I mean number 2, right? And then number 3 would be your friends and neighbors and all that stuff, right? And then after that would then be your village, okay, the location you live, and then the state, province, whatever, and then eventually your country, and then your country, then the world, and then the world then becomes humanity, and that's the final circle. And then after that, maybe there's
Okay.
God or whatever it is. But the idea is you have to kind of take care of yourself and your family and your neighbors in that sequence from the inside out. Whereas Western culture, it's all over the place. So let me give you a good example when I was learning. So there's Charles Dickens.
Yep.
So there's a book called Little Dorrit, and I remember clearly this scene where essentially there's a theme that's actually in a lot of those books, where of basically parents doing elite parent stuff. So what would you do as an elite parent, right? You go to the Met Gala, you fundraise for Africa, you do concerts, you do whatever, right? And I guess
all these like very cliche things.
so back then, so he wrote this book, Charles Dickens, the great Charles Dickens, one of the greatest writers of all time. He wrote about the equivalent back then, where people were having balls and parties and ignoring their own children, where the children were wearing tattered clothes, emotionally neglected, and worse off
like
than they should have been,
like
especially in the immense wealth of their family.
Yeah.
And so that's basically also why I think some people maybe they don't appreciate Western culture, maybe don't appreciate America. Like, well, we can't take care of your own house. Who are you to tell us what to do? It's just human nature, right? So human nature is like, if you can't, I don't know, ski, then don't tell me how to ski, because you've never skied before. But that's something that Western culture, that's okay to do. In some ways, because you're basically saying, hey, you should do this, you should do that, and I think that's what's going on with, let's say, Afghanistan, right? You should go and you should have these moral values, but maybe they're not ready for you. I think there's some degree of free will, and I think that's something that's hard to understand. But also, I think you're stronger when you provide an example. Okay, so going back to this whole like concentric circle. Let's say I do have my house in order. Let's say I don't have a country that's racist, that is unfair, that has equal rights, all that stuff. People get it.
Has like opportunity and everything. Yeah.
So let's go back to your childhood. I don't want to distract away from your story.
No, it was good. I mean, like all the respect, but it's basically like within Latinos, it's pretty much the same thing. Like, is always respected, but there's a bunch of things that make no sense to me, which is why like even within this story that I told you about the koi fish, I never saw myself as the dragon that made it out. I was like a fish that went to hang out with the demons because it was more fun and more entertaining to watch the other guys see. Like it was just more fun, because there's a bunch of things that you've been taught through tradition that aren't necessarily like what is actually happening in real life. Let's say like what you said about respecting your elders. Like the way I interpreted that was that you respected the knowledge they're supposed to have acquired through the time, regardless of their age. Like if there's an old guy, an old lady that is just there, and they didn't really understand things like basic things of life, or like why would they deserve your this innate respect? I get it, like as a human you have like the bare minimum, but this placing them above, let's say a really smart adult, like not older adult, but like somebody our age, just because they're older, it really for me made no sense. Like if they have no knowledge, because that's what was valuable back in the days. It's like, oh, they've been around for so long, they know how to figure out things. Like they know what to do in this case. That's why you take care of that person. Or like they know what to do if this happens, or they know about the vegetation around here. So you get to pass it on to somebody else, which is kind of like your worth as a teacher and as a mentor, if anything.
Absolutely,
So it's not the age. Yeah.
And you know what?
So
I think Americans. I think the thing that shocks me is the way they treat their old people, the retired folks, because there's no such thing as retirement homes, you know, like really in Vietnam. I mean, you live with your family, and just going back to the Vietnamese language, right? There's something called Quê Hương. Like Quê Hương is your neighborhood, your local village, and there's your extended family, and you live with your family. I live with my mom right now. You know, I live with my brother. I'm gonna live with my kids. I'm gonna live in the extended family, because here's what you do, right? As immigrants, you go and you bind together into pockets like Chinatown, where you support each other. And one of the stories that I heard, I'm not sure if this is true or not, about Korean immigrants, and I heard this from my Korean college friends. I'm not sure this is true, but this is actually a badass story. So I don't know the name of it, but it's a secret society you can form with your friends. Let's say you have like 10 business folks, 10 business friends.
Yep.
They all go to like, you know, school together. What they can commit is, for the next 10 years, everyone will commit, let's say, $5,000 of their savings to this club. $5,000 times 10 people is $50,000 a year. One of them will get that, and they can start a business. Right? They can start a laundromat. Yeah. They can start a convenience store, and then you can basically make a living. But then it's like an honor system. It's like the samurai way.
Yeah. No,
and
definitely.
the samurai way, and I remember Zhao Yun Fat. You remember Zhao Yun Fat? And then those movies, Zhao Yun Fat, like Hard Boiled. Oh, those movies where it's basically those like, you know, Asian shoot 'em up movies, where the bro movies.
Okay.
It's all about the brotherhood, man. It's all about sticking together as a family, as immigrants, and living in the same roof, and then sharing to buy a house together. For example, like cousins would put together money to buy a single family. They live in a single family, and they share in the savings, and they buy extra houses, and they grow their family in California, and they move to Texas, and they move to, you know, back home to Vietnam, and buy property there, and expand and send home family home. That's the immigrant dream. That's but you do that by sticking together.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's also the tribal
strength, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the American way is, okay, let's move out. You're so embarrassed. You live at your parents' house. Well, what's wrong with that?
Well, you look for independence.
Right. Well, you have kids, so let's hire a nanny. Let's hire strangers. Let's hire someone, and let's pay for strangers to take care of our grandkids. You know.
Just different priorities, I guess. In this, like, there's some things I do like about the States and Canada and all these other. That in Ecuador per se, like at some point you have to come to terms with the fact that your parents might need stuff that you might not be able to provide, like some sort of like professional care that the homes do offer.
Right. And let's talk about this. So you have some jungle roots, right? You're really from Ecuador. Tell me about that. Tell me about the ancients that you're descended from.
Yeah. You have all the Incas, man. Like that's
so you're an Incan, right?
No,
You're that. Good.
It gets it's interesting because like the way I grew up was basically same thing, like respect your elders. I was very Catholic. Like I went to like the Catholic school and everything, and just you can't really question anything per se. Like everything is kind of like, this is the way it is. That's it. Leave it alone. And when you're 18, you'll like, if you want, you do whatever you want. Once you're 18, like you're there. You're a responsibility until you're 18. After that, you're an adult. Like you can drive a car, like when you're 18, you can start drinking when you're 18. You can do anything when you're 18. But the way I grew up, I was so useless when I was 18. It was crazy. like I couldn't cook. I couldn't do my laundry. Like when I moved out, I had like, luckily I had my cousin there. My cousin and the girlfriend he had at the time. They were like super nice to me when I was actually like independent on the first like. Because at the beginning of my when you go to Ecuador, you like if you're like well off or a little bit well off, you're like middle upper. You have like a helper at the house and everything. So she cooks, she cleans, she does your beds, she does your laundry. She's working there all day, and that's it. Like you just come. I used to come back from school. My bed was done. All my clothes were clean. My uniform was all like ready for the next day. Everything was fine. You just have to basically focus on studying, and that's it.
Wow.
But that doesn't.
So you had a servant?
As a servant, well, like, we had an employee at the house. Like it was a cleaning lady, and she was super nice. Maria Clara, if you ever get to see this.
No, my friend who's Sri Lankan, he actually had servants.
Yep.
So that's not abnormal. Like,
Well,
there are actually people who are
no.
like super, and actually in the Philippines in particular, there's a lot of maids and stuff that actually
Yeah,
get exported to the U.S. to take care of the families here.
Well, yeah, yeah, and then they ship them in and everything. But no, here it's a valid job. I mean, like at the beginning, they weren't really recognized. Let's say you would just like pay them cash and that was it, and like go away, and you could get rid of them whenever you wanted. But then they actually made it like a real job, like a real like you had status within the government per se. Like you had to affiliate them to the government insurance and to a bunch of things, and they had like more rights and responsibilities, which was a great thing. Because sometimes like one of my aunts, let's say like they would come up, they would be with this person. My grandfather had a lady with him for like 20 years. So I'm like they're almost part of the family. Like almost every souvenir I have from my childhood hanging out with my grandfather, like this lady was there too.
No,
like,
no,
so,
absolutely. But
yeah.
let's go to the Incans though, because I want to dive deep into the Incans, right? So the Incans are let's talk about some of the spiritual stuff, and in particular, let's talk about ayahuasca.
I did that.
Let's talk about
not
some of
ago.
the. Have you done ayahuasca before? Because I'm curious to know.
I did it. Yeah. Well, me too. Exactly. I was curious to know what it was. I had heard about it so much, and that's some point. I'm like, you know what? I've had drinks. You've been drinking for a while. Like you kind of understand what happens to you after like with alcohol, and like in Ecuador, like we started drinking when we were like what 14, 15, like on the illegal side, and like get somebody to buy you booze and whatever. Not even get somebody that looked older. I had kind of like a beard-ish when I was like 16. So no questions asked at the depth. Like here you go, and so then we just went, had some drinks, and after a while you understand what it is. I'm like, okay, so this is it, being drunk. But ayahuasca is a completely different thing, and I was really curious about the whole introspective aspect that it has, because it's not like doing, I don't know, like weed or like, it's really like it's not a recreational drug. It's very like it's kind of like a self development.
When did you do it? When did you do this?
I did this maybe like 3-4 months ago. Like right before leaving Ecuador, like and coming over to Dominican Republic, I did it. Figure like, you know what, it's an hour never.
Did you meet the machine elves, and the aliens,
No.
and all these other
Man, what I did see, well, I'll tell you like the whole process. We were this nice group, because I did like shop around for it, because like I've heard some horrible experiences, and I do trust my like the not sober me to get me home. My autopilot is awesome. I will get home regardless of the state I am. So once you're okay with that, and you know that your autopilot is gonna take care of you, I felt like safe or secure enough to be like, you know what, let's see what's up, because you're basically like giving in all your like all the control, all your sobriety, like to somebody else, and you're within a group. So I can see like a lot of my girlfriends were very like, they weren't sure what was going to happen, and they're like, you know what, like they all want to do it, but nobody wants anything bad to happen to them. And you hear like all these horror stories as well, like on the news every day, somebody went having had some drinks with somebody they shouldn't have, and then bad things happen. So to you go and deliberately go mess yourselves up with ayahuasca, it just made no sense to them. But luckily I shopped around, got some good feedback from some people, and chose a group. And they were a great group. Like it was mainly, there was maybe like 10, 15 of us doing it, and including the daughter of the taita, like the shaman that was in charge, was there as well. And it was all people that were coming back. Like it wasn't just like a batch of people and then next and next. It's people that had already done it, and they had formed like this community that does it every month, every 2 months.
Wow, so they do that often? They do it every 2 months?
Well, in what they really like, they believe, I mean like they like the people like from the Amazon, the guardians of the plant, are very, it's like going to like to your psychiatrist, but this time it's you and like the upper you, like the you that sees everything, that has all the information, which is why I wanted to go, because you know how like throughout your life you end up having different aspects of it, different events, different traumas, different situations that you like your brain is like, okay, you can't deal with this now, so let's put this in this box and not talk about it until you have more information. You're either more mature, you're either more open, or you know the rest of the story. So like, you can't deal with this, so let's just put this in the back of the brain. But there is, and like that's what the ayahuasca brings out, is all the information. It's you let the plant in, and basically what it does is it gives you all the answers you have, all that you need, that are within you. So that's why some people are very afraid of it, because like sometimes like there's people that have severe trauma, and on different situations you were either like very bullied when you were a kid and you just like park that in the back of your head, you were maybe molested, you were maybe like, so many things could have happened to you throughout your life. And what this thing does, it unlocks all of it.
Wow.
And that's what you want.
So did that happen to you? Did you have any changes in your life?
Actually, no. Like that's what, like, the way it happened is they told me I got there at 11 p.m. as I had been instructed.
So hold on. So how did you book this? This just because from someone who's not from Ecuador,
like
you just go to your CVS and say, "I'd like to make an ayahuasca." I like to or you just go to the jungle hiking somewhere and just find a village and you find a shaman.
No.
How does how do you get references? How do you go about finding a shaman?
Well, how do you find a shaman? First of all, like, you just like actually in Facebook or like Google ayahuasca, and you're gonna have a bunch of people. And then everybody now sends you a link to Facebook because that's their page and this one. And then you really, really go through the reviews. And if you can, chat with some people, chat with other like men and women, see what their experiences were, and see where it's being done, see what else is being done with ayahuasca. Because like I saw this group they were throwing coca, ayahuasca, San Pedro, and they were all doing it in the temazcal, which is basically like a little hut. It's a sauna hut. So you get hit by like 5 different things. So something is gonna stick. And that's what you don't want. Like this one, it was just ayahuasca. So you get ayahuasca for what it is. You're not getting all messed up on coca, or you're like all amped up on like San Pedro within the heat and everything. So it's very just that. And that's what I wanted. So like I don't want like a cocktail of all the plants that because like plants they're a powerful thing, and you have to be like very careful and respectful of what you're taking in, because it's not just like, let's see what happens. Bad things can happen. So that's the thing.
So did any of the people who took it that night, anything happen that was like extraordinary? Any breakthroughs? Anything that was bad or good?
Yeah. Well, the experience, like they told me to get there at like 11, that they were gonna start. No, they told me to get there at 9. Ceremony started at 11, and I was already kind of like tired because I go to bed at 10, like tops, because I wake up at like 5:30 in the morning, go to the gym. So like, okay, I'm kind of tired, and they're at 11. So then the ceremony starts. There's a little intro, like they talk to you, they tell you like, first of all, like I already talked with one of the shamans, and they had some guides as well, like some people that had already done it and that were like a bit more experienced in the art, which are basically some are nephews or like grandchildren, and they were there to guide you. They're like constantly monitoring the energy of the place, and if anybody needs help, they're there.
Did you throw up? You're supposed to throw up.
You're not supposed to throw up, but like I didn't.
So maybe you didn't take enough. Maybe you didn't get all the way there.
Well, that's the thing. Like in the doses they were giving, like they gave you like a little cup. You do a little cheers, like thank you, and you take it in. There was a dude that as soon as he took it in, 5 minutes later he threw up like liters of liquid that was in his stomach. I don't know like where it kept coming out from, but it was pouring out. I was just there like very open to the situation, see how it goes, expecting something. They suggest that you don't like talk to anybody. They try to like focus on yourself and like towards the inside and see what you're feeling, and really let the spirit of ayahuasca in, and just live it.
Did you let it in? Did you see anything? Did you actually experience any hallucinations?
After my second shot, I was really like, by this time, like the first time one is at like 11 p.m.
Okay.
then I was just like chill, wandering around. Nothing happened. People were throwing up. Other people, because it can come out both ends, right? So it's really like a cleansing plant. So I don't know, like if you have like a horrible way of like feeding yourself, like if you're just eating fast foods and crap, like you don't know where you're buying your things, where your food comes from. It affects you, and the plant recognizes that as this is bad, so it releases everything from your body.
Okay.
So like it's either you throw up or you go and like make it to the bathroom.
But the second, so you didn't feel anything though, and then you kind of walked around.
No,
observed.
the first time I was just like expecting something. I was just like looking around, seeing how everybody went, and one of the guys like came up and talked to me like are you okay? Like everything. I'm like, yeah, man, like everything's fine. I'm not fighting this. I'm not trying to like stay sober. You know, like when you go you're at like 2 a.m. and you wobble to the bathroom in that party, and you just like look at yourself in the mirror and have that moment of, man, that I shouldn't have had those 5 last tequila shots. Like I wasn't in that situation of trying to put it together. Like I was really like open and just waiting for something to happen, like something new, something I hadn't felt. So then it's 2 o'clock now, and it's time for like a second shot if you want it. The guy that was throwing up didn't take it. He was like I'm kind of like done, and he kept going. I had my second shot, and that's where like things started getting a bit more interesting. I sat down. Some dude was like started yelling and screaming for people to help him. And one of the things that they did tell us is that, listen, like the Pachamama, which is like the earth, is gonna call you. Like it's gonna really want to pull you in, pull you down. Do not, if you can avoid it, do not lie down. And because it's hard for us to like then bring you back up, and like not like on a physical aspect, but more like an energy. And for some reason, like this one of the older guys that was there started yelling, and he was like lying on the ground, but like completely like spread out flat. It was very like, it was like not the, I didn't just like roll into a ball and like go to the side kind of situation. It was really like he was really trying to be as low as he could. And that's what they told me like later, that yeah, because the earth was calling him and whatnot. And about 5 or 6 of them had to come and administer the energy he was giving away and all that he had been feeling for a while that just hit him at that moment because he was cleansing it. And that's when I started like feeling stuff. And I was like, it does get you kind of like when you start getting a bit like tipsy, and you don't necessarily like have to see things, but what I did see was like a kind of a feline something, and with a bunch of eyes on its face.
You mean like a feline, like a cat? You mean?
Yeah. It wasn't very big. It was probably like the size of a dog. It's like a husky-ish. So it was bigger than a cat. And
wait, was it in front of you? Did you have your eyes closed? How did this work? Like,
no, I was just there, like trying to like figure out like.
Wait. So you were just literally hallucinating a jaguar, like a black jaguar or something size, or like a kitten? Like how big is this cat?
With a bunch of eyes.
How big is this cat?
About the size of a dog, like it's like a husky.
Okay, and like did it talk to you, or how did you communicate with it?
It was just there looking at me. I'm like, this is interesting. And
so you, one moment it wasn't there, and then how did you see it?
Yeah, it wasn't there, and then it kind of like came in one of the doors and just like wandered around.
Wait, so a real cat could have walked in. How you know it wasn't a real cat?
There were no animals on the premises, like, but you never know. Like, it's a cat. Like, yeah, sometimes there's cats around your house or in an alley or whatever, but.
But was it bigger than a regular cat? Was it like a monster looking cat?
Yeah, it was like a size of a dog.
So it was like a monster cat. It wasn't like a regular cat.
Yeah, no, that's what I figured. Like, okay, this is like not a real cat. It was a cat.
Were you scared of it? Was it like a demon cat, or was it like an angel cat?
It wasn't aggressive at all.
Or was it just like whatever?
It was just there. Yeah, it was just there looking at you, and it had like all these like a bunch of eyes on its face, but not like creepy eyes, just like different. I don't even know how to explain it. It didn't have like.
What color were the eyes? What color were the eyes?
Dark. Everything was like very dark.
And what was creepy about it? Was it
eyes.
because of the shape?
No, it was just like wandering around and just like looking at, and it then came over and walked away. So I'm like, like, And you had like the dude yelling and screaming on as a background, and then I just sat there trying to like simulate what had just happened, and then the shaman came over and told me like we had like what do you call this, a cleanse, like a limpia, where they like clean you with smoke and everything while they're chanting, and it got pretty interesting. It was fun.
So that's the only thing you saw, though. You only saw the cat, and then it's like, okay,
Yeah,
it went
that was
away.
it.
Do you have any like thoughts? Do you have any like shapes that you saw? Some people say they see geometric shapes.
Oh, like honestly, like as a cleansing, as a fun experience, it was interesting. Like it's definitely something like I would want to redo in my life. But next time, that's the thing. Like I'll maybe up the dose.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you got there because I mean, based on some of the other stories I've heard from podcasts and news and also, but
Yeah.
I mean, PTSD and all these other diseases are being treated with psychedelics, and psychedelics is a wave of real. So as you know, I was the CEO, co-founder of a clinicalresearch.io. We basically provide software for the clinical research industry, so I know a little bit about the FDA process and some of the process of drug approval. But it's really, you know, there's a lot of breakthroughs that are happening there. And like for me, you know, I never touched anything. I never drank alcohol until I discovered the joys of alcohol in college. But then, you know, it also became something that, you know, I was probably addicted to, and I had to quit. And I basically around 40, I was working on so many companies and stuff, and I was just like stressed with my life. I was really drinking like a bottle of wine a day. And it was terrible for me.
Like on your own?
Yeah, I just on my own, just because, you know, you go home, you know, even especially during COVID. I bet a lot of people go to COVID having 2-3 glasses of wine a day. 2-3 glasses is actually a bottle. A bottle is actually 4 glasses. So you have a glass at 6 p.m. right before dinner. Then maybe you have a glass at dinner. They have a glass, you know, watching a show. Then you have another glass, whatever. So you end up being like a glass, and then you're like your liver's fucked. Everything's messed up. And then I started having gout. You know what gout is?
Joints. Yeah, one of my friend gets it regularly actually because he just eats horrible.
Yeah, so gout gout is basically called the disease of kings. So you see, Benjamin Franklin, actually one of the most famous people who got gout. He wrote a poem about gout. You should look it up on Google. But gout is like, oh gout, you know, blah blah blah. But basically, he's like writing a poem about how it sucks to have gout and how painful it is. And basically, he has a relationship with the pain because literally what happens is your bone grows extra bone, where it's not supposed to grow it. And these crystals, essentially, you can imagine like a hammer hitting you over and over and over again for 5 days, and you can't sleep. It's the most intense pain. I've never had childbirth, but I'm hoping that childbirth is not like that, because I cannot imagine that pain. Because if anyone who's had gout, you know, put in the comments, you know what I'm talking about. And you have to take this medication for the rest of your life, essentially, because there's a cure for it, essentially, a treatment for it. Or you just there's a couple things that cause it. There's shellfish. There's actually beer and alcohol. Alcohol because it stops you from processing. Basically, the purines. So purines is basically something that you eat. And certain things have more purines than others, right? So red meat, shellfish, other stuff. And even some vegetables, even some vegetables. So you avoid those things, and I think for me it was alcohol, because the beer and I didn't drink too much beer, mostly wine, but the alcohol suppresses your ability to process the purines, and the beer itself has a lot of purines in it, so you get the double whammy. So then I had to quit. But the reason I was able to quit, because I was trying to quit for a long time, was because I started smoking some weed, cannabis, which became legal in Massachusetts, right? Awesome. And that basically saved my life, I believe. And that's why I'm so skinny now. I lost a lot of weight. And I would say, like, you know, cannabis, like when you're 40, it's the most amazing thing ever, because I think, well, just some basic science. So what happens in your brain, and I actually study neuroscience quite a bit, because I do computer vision. I do machine learning. I do basically computer vision and computer science and neuroscience are kind of combined together to basically understand how human thought and how to basically copy human thought. So the way that computer vision works and machine learning works is it's basically the ability to take calculus and math and essentially use it to basically copy your brain. is really cool. And so I'll give you an example, right? So let's say you have to look at colors, red, green, and blue. This is the most simple thing. You can represent red, green, and blue by essentially a number system. Let's say red is 1, green is 3, and blue is 4, right? Or 5, whatever number, right? So all you do is you just make a graph of what blue looks like, what red, and basically once you make a graph of what everything looks like, it essentially is the answer sheet for what blue is. So let's say I look at a color spectrum. The color spectrum blue is, 155, and red is, whatever 3, and then green is whatever a number. That's all it is. It's just caching and storing and copying the human's thoughts. And here's what I mean. It's really cool what we do. So what we do is basically we teach you like the brain teaches itself. So that your brain essentially is neuroplastic, meaning it can actually learn. It could change. So when you're a baby, you can learn. You can do a lot of things. And as you grow older, you become more set in your ways, and you basically neurons that get set. And when you take drugs, you essentially disrupt those neurons that are set and make it neuroplastic again. And when you make it neuroplastic again, you're essentially bringing yourself back to childhood, and you can learn more things. And you make connections that you may not have made otherwise because you were so set with your neurons. And essentially, when you took the ayahuasca and PTs, all you're doing is you're giving yourself another perspective. Because there's 2 phases of your brain. You're learning and when you're a child. And as you learn and learn and learn, what you do is you start creating models of how to live. And you become more rigid because you have to, right? So for example, if you cross the street, you're going to die. You get hit by a car unless you look both ways. So it's a neuroplasticity. You're like, oh, should I walk or not? I'm just going to randomly try this. I can walk sometimes. I can stop and not cross sometimes. But I'm very plastic. I'm still learning. I'm still a child. I can run to the street and die without my parents. Sometimes because I'm not paying attention. That one instance, right? Yeah. Now, when you become an adult, you become plastic, meaning like I'm going to cross the street by looking both ways, pushing the crosswalk if I'm not that type of person. And then I'm not going to be plastic. So, for example, people in Singapore, they wait for the stoplight, they cross. When I'm like from America, and I just see, okay, there's no cars, I just cross the street. So what's more optimum, right? To cross the street in the 2 a.m. in Singapore, when I was in Singapore at 2 a.m. Literally, I was at Singapore at 2 a.m. There's no cars. And I crossed the street, and this woman looked at me aghast, saying, oh my God, you're going to get a ticket. You broke the law at 2 a.m. You just jaywalked. Because she's not plastic, right? And so that's what,
Man,
that's what probably happens to a lot of adults, and that happened to me. And like once I started taking it, not only did I broke free of the alcohol, but I also got smarter and more creative, actually.
That's $50 of a fine in Montreal. You got jaywalking. It's like that's how they smack it out of you. Like there's rules.
Yeah, and okay, so let me show you some more deep science, and we'll end with this. And then this is actually a very interesting show because we saw your background, And so just recap: you grew up in Canada for a while, you moved back to Ecuador. Yep. You didn't take ayahuasca till later, but you were a bad boy a little bit. You drank a little bit, you had fun, and then what happened? Let's close that out.
And then I try to keep in contact with these people and learn there's a bunch of different cleanses that you could actually do besides ayahuasca, depending on what you have or what you're looking for. There was this awesome cleanse that I would never do, that it was with darts of frog poison.
The toad venom.
It is crazy.
Yeah, toad venom.
I'll tell you guys, it's...
We'll talk about that another because I think we're getting close to the hour. I know you have to head out soon. Yeah. But okay, so let's go back to your childhood. So you grew up, and then how do you get into animation? Like, where do you go to school? Where do you go to college? All that stuff.
That's the thing. Like, after I was a great student in high school, and then I just went to Canada to when I was 18. I hadn't been there for like 10 years. So I want to see let's see what my parents left. And I applied as a joke. Let's see what happens to Concordia University, and I got accepted. And
so you only applied one college in Canada, and you got accepted?
Yeah.
Okay. And the other colleges were in Ecuador?
I didn't even. Yeah, in Ecuador we had a spot, but I mean, it was just a joke.
So you did a joke application. You just got in one college. You applied once and you got in. 100% acceptance rate.
Yeah, in Concordia, I just put like, you know what they make you put like 3 things in case you don't get in? I just put like civil engineering, that was it. And I was like,
So
"Meh,
so you were
let's see
gonna
what
be a
happens."
construction worker, right?
I was a civil engineer, yeah, because my parents wanted that.
You know what a
It was
domestic
something
engineer
called-
is?
What?
It's a homemaker.
It's useful. You need that.
So you gotta have the fancy titles, right? Civil engineer, domestic engineer.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Engineer it is. It's an engineer. It still
Engineering is
counts.
engineering. Like you engineer your family's life, and actually, my wife, she is an awesome domestic engineer. She's a fantastic, and I'll have her on. And that's where you met your wife, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we met together at Concordia. Actually, thank you, matchmaker, Concordia University.
So how did you guys meet?
It was fun.
You guys were like freshman lovers.
No, yeah, kind.
So you know the story.
Like
So
that.
you meet freshman year and then you get married. Is that one of those things?
No, actually, we met late. Like way, I was like at least a couple of years into my program, and we met training. Actually, we met doing. I used to help out one of my friends. He was a capoeira teacher. So we used to train and do the classes, and at some point, there's a good-looking girl walked in, and I was like, huh.
And then you found
And then-
love, and then you stayed in Canada for a while.
Actually, no, one of my friends fell in love. He shotgunned her, like shotgun, and then so none of us could.
So he
try
had
anything
dibs. He
before
had dibs on your wife first, and then you broke free of that. Well, anyway, it looks like Roberto has lost his connection, but it seems like we are a good stopping point for episode 3. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, as we'll continue in the next episode where we left off. And thank you for listening. And Roberto hopefully can finish his story at the beginning of the next episode. And hopefully we will keep you guys entertained for a while, and then we'll get to the present time. And we'll talk about some of the stuff that we're working on today, and some also the scientific theories and some of the inventions and products, and cool thoughts that we are working on today. So thank you so much to What the Phuc. Signing off.